Hello everyone. In this lecture, we are going to cover some basic commands in Cypress. So we are going to write and run some real tests with our using our training website, and we are going to deep dive in how to write automation scripts, what should be our structure, and etc. So first we will be try to understanding this describe and it methods, and we will learn how to launch a browser with Cypress. We are going to refresh, navigate back and forward on the browser with Cypress. We are going to validate the title of the web application and also URL, and we are going to write our one real test. So let's start with the understanding describe and it. So this describe and it, as we mentioned before in our before class, Cypress bundles with many different libraries like jQuery, Mocha, and Chai. So this describe and it is directly coming from the Mocha. So basically, this describe is a block that contains multiple tests inside, and this each it block it defines the individual tests in Cypress. So let's go to our framework, and inside the end-to-end, let's create a new folder and let's name it integration. And inside this integration folder, let's create a new file and let's name it 01 underscore first test.cy.js. Now we will define the group of test block, which is the describe. So basically we can just follow this structure, but when we call this describe, the IntelliSense is going to suggest us, and you can see that it's coming from the Mocha in here. And we will say describe, and our first argument is going to be the name of our group of test block, and let's say my first tests. So we will define our second argument, but our second argument is going to be the arrow function. So all we need to do is just going to define our arrow function. And now we are going to create our each individual test block inside of this test group, inside of this describe. What this describe is, as I say, we are going to create our individual test blocks inside this describe, and it will define all of our test groups. So inside describe, we don't directly write test, we write tests inside the it block. So again, our syntax is pretty much same, but you can just call it. It's going to suggest from the Mocha again. You just call this one, and you can just give the name. Let's just try to follow, and let's say my first test, and the second argument is going to be the arrow function again. So this is where we will going to write our first test. So as I mentioned and defined on the documentation in here, this describe and it are coming from the bundled library that is bundled to Cypress, which is Mocha. So these are pretty much like pretty popular JavaScript libraries that are very often used by the developers. But in Cypress, all the tests that we will write, we will define inside this describe and add it blocks. And also, there's two assertion methods that is also bundled inside the Cypress, which is expect and should, and we will get deep inside of these methods and explanations about those in our upcoming lectures. Well, let's just continue. So Cypress has adopted Mocha BDD syntax. So what we mean by the BDD, from your soft skills classes, as you can remember, BDD is following some kind of language is keep defined with given, when, then, and. This is called BDD syntax, which is actually stands for Behavior Driven Development Framework. So which fits perfectly with both integration and unit testing. All of the tests you will be writing sit on the fundamental harness Mocha provides. So these test blocks are and this syntax is provided us with the help of the Mocha. And Chai. So Chai is another very popular JavaScript library, but basically it gives us ability to easily write assertions. So what we mean by the assertion is basically making sure that our expected result matching with our actual result. As a tester, this is what is our main purpose to test the application. So Chai basically gives us readable assertions with excellent error messages. Cypress extends this, fixes several common pitfalls, and wraps Chai's DSL using subjects and the should command. So first, let's see how to launch a browser. So if you go to our framework, if we so all the main commands, all the parent commands that we call with the Cypress, it will be start with the Cypress object, which is the CY. So whenever we call this CY, all the Cypress bundled methods will be integrated. The parent methods will be integrated with this command. So right after you put this dot, Cypress is going to suggest you all these parent commands. And the first method that we will learn in our lecture is going to be visit. So this visit is actually a method taking a URL of the website that we want to visit and launch that URL for us. So this is the very beginning step of each test. We define our URL, which is basically a web application that we want to test, and we write our scripts on that web application. So in this case, we will be using our training website. So let's go to, actually we have it in here, Tech Global Home. We can just copy this website name and put right inside of this URL and make sure that you save. So you shouldn't see this white dot in here in this tab. So I will save it, but of course nothing will happen because our Cypress test runner is still not up yet. So from the command that you can remember, npx cypress open is going to open our test runner. And from here, we will be selecting end-to-end testing, and we will say start Chrome. So in here, you will see the other files, other folders, but these are just the folders that are provided from Cypress. We are not working with this. From now on, we will be only working inside our integration folder, which is defined in here. So if you select this one, and once you click on this test, it's going to automatically run this test. So as you can see in here, it's already directed us to Tech Global web page. So the function that you wrote is already defined in here. Visit techglobal.com. So what we will do after is basically we are going to expand our test script in the for the further automations. So let's go back to our presentation. So as we said in here, cy.visit commands tell Cypress to launch a browser and navigate the given URL. As starting point for most end of the test and end-to-end tests, since it's open the website you want to test. As I defined, all of the tests that you will do for any web application, you have to define which website that you want to test. Then you can continue doing your further actions. So let's see more comments on Cypress that how can we navigate, or how can we reload the existing page, or how can we navigate back or navigate forward between pages. So let's go back to our framework, and first let's learn how we are going to reload our page. It's pretty basic and straightforward. This is the one of the good things about Cypress. The commands are pretty much uh, readable, and you can understand by reading the commands that what they are doing. So if you want to reload your page, all you need to do is just call this reload command. This command is basically refreshes your page. In case you might need this command is the reason that sometimes the web page elements might not be reloaded properly due to your internet connection or maybe server issues. So in this case you might need this command, but this is very rare case. But it's good to know that we have this command. So once we save, this is one of the good things of the Cypress. You will see that our test runner is going to run this test once again. Whenever I just save this command, you will see Cypress pretty much run these commands that we wrote already. So from here, as we mentioned before, you can see how much test cases are success and failures. And if you want to rerun this test page, you can just click on this button. So you can see how fast is that. Now, for the further, what we can do is basically, let's say we can visit a different web page, and let's also do this in our web page. And now I will visit another web page, let's say frontend, which is the frontend page of our website. Again, when you save it, you will see Cypress automatically runs the automation for you right away. So to see how it looks like, I will going to rerun the tests in here from this button. It navigate the browser, it reload it, and it visit the page you want. Now we will learn how to go forward or how to go back or what else we can do. So going back and forward in Cypress is pretty much straight and really easy to do it. So all we need to do is we just need to put cy.go, and this command takes a direction. We can define the correction with two ways. We can say back, and this means basically clicking the back button on your browser. I will save, and we should go back to our home page. First we will visit Tech Global, then we will be reloading it, then we will be navigating to front-end page, then we will be go back and we are going back to our main URL. And if you want to go forward again, all we need to do is just write the same command cy.go, but this time as an argument it will take forward inside. And at the end of our test we will expect to be inside this page again. Yep, we are inside the front-end page. There are another ways to do this back and forward. So instead of cy.go, you can do cy.go -1. This will do the same thing as going back. And another command is cy.go then +1. And this will do the forward for you. If you command out these two commands, this -1 and +1 will do the same thing as back and forward. I'm sorry, it should be just 1. You don't need to define it inside the -1. The 1 itself already means go forward. Yep, it is working as we expected. So as we define in here, we did the pretty much same thing. Instead of Google, we use our web page. So let's move on. So title validation. So title is basically every web page, every web application on the browser should have their title. I mean, it's not should, but the thing is, most of the popular, like high-end websites, they always define their titles. And as you can remember from your HTML classes, when we go to browser, we can see the page title by clicking in the inspect, and from the inspect we always define our title inside the head. So if you click on this head, you will see your title is in here. So in our condition, our title is Tech Global Training Home, so which you can see in here. So if you want to validate your title, all you need to do is go back to your framework, and all you need to write is pretty much straight, guys. It's really easy to read and understand. cy.title. So this one is going to return the title of your page implicitly. You don't need to do anything. But if you want to validate this title, we will be using our assertion that we just mentioned in our presentation. If you go back, you will see that, which is should, as we told before, that is coming from chai. So we can just chain it with the should command, and this will take two arguments. First argument, what do we want to do with this should, and second one, what we want to provide. And we expect our title to equal to be the title that we want to expect it. So first one is going to take the EQ. This EQ is basically the means it's equals. So we are saying that this title should be equal to what our title of our web page. So if you go back to our web page, we can just copy this comment, and not comment, like we can just copy the title of our web page, and we can just paste it inside our test automation. And once we save, the test runner is going to run this command for us and validate the title. So whenever I save it, you will see it will reload the page, it will visit the front end page, and it will go back, go forward again, and when it's go back to our main page, it's going to validate the title for us. You can just see it here. I expected Tech Global Training Home to equal Tech Global Training Home, and since it's green, it means our title is asserted. I will just comment out this portion. You don't need these anymore. So right now, all we need to do is let's just go back to our presentation, and let's see this time how to validate the URL of the page. The syntax is again pretty much straight and easy to understand. So this time, instead of cy.title, we are just going to say cy.url. This command is going to return the URL of our website, and again with the same command using should, we can just say equals to, and second argument we can just give the URL of our web page. So basically in here we are asking that get our URL, and this one should be equal to this URL. So I will rerun the test for you to see. But you can see right now we have two assertions in here. I'll rerun again, and you can see how fast is that, and it's already validated the title and the URL for us. But this is the beauty of the Cypress. Like the syntax and the chaining commands are pretty much straight and pretty much readable. By just reading that, you can just understand what they are doing and what they are supposed to do. So now let's create another test block using it, and let's do and write our first automation test. So I'm just going to create another test block right now. And what we will do in here is basically we are going to define, but by the way, don't just forget to put the comma in here. We are going to write very basic test, but we are not going to define any website. We are just gonna do a very basic test. What this expect, as we discussed before, this should and expect is coming from Chai. So what we will do is expect true, and we're just going to ask to equal true. So I'm just going to comment out this one because I only want this one to run. I will just say this one. If you go here, you will see your true is equal to true. This was basically some basic validation without using any website to demonstrate that how this expect block works. By the way, about these assertions like should and expect, on our next lecture we are going to deep dive and try to understand these validations more. So now let's try to write the first failed test and to see that how failed test looks like. So what we will do is right now we said expect is true to equal to true, right? So if we put false in here, it should basically fail our test because true is not equal to false. So I will just voice false and save it. And if you go to our framework, you will see it is pretty much clear that it's showing us the assertion. And right now you will see on the success there is nothing, but on the failure you will see it's equal to 1. So it looks like we have one failed test case. And it's already explaining in here. It's telling us assert expected true to equal false, which is impossible, right? An assertion's error is already telling us expected true to equal to false. And there is a problem in here. These are not equal. Yes, definitely it's not. And that is how it's basically warning us. Now, let's write a real automation test. And you can just consider this one as a basic test case. So what we will do, as it's defined in here, a solid test generally covers 3 phases. Set up the application phase, take an action, make an assertion about resulting application state. So today in this test what we will do is we're going to visit the page, we are going to query for an element, we are going to interact with that element, and we will assert about that content on the page. So for now, first one, let's visit the page. Let's go back to our framework. We can just comment out this test and we can just take this back. And let's just remove this one. Or we can just keep this one to validate our page URL and the title. So now the first step of the test telling us to visit Tech Global Training website. I think we already covered this portion in here, right? We are visiting our website techglobaltraining.com. Just make this a little bit bigger. So now basically the command log now shows new visit action, right? When we just going to run this phase, it's showing us that where we are visiting. This one's the assertions that we left, so that's why they're still there. By the way, it's also called this one like application preview pane as we told before. But as you can see, since our tests are green in here, there's nothing to worry about it. So query for an element. So during your HTML classes and CSS classes, you see that to interact with a specific web element, you were writing some CSS code. And in this CSS code, you were defining that web element to give that web element some styling, right? So in the Cypress, this is how we are going to interact with the web element. So basically, if you go to our Tech Global website, If we want to interact with any web element, we can just click on this button after we open our inspector. So I will just right click and I will say inspect. And when I click on this one, so if I want to, if I need to interact with any web element inside this page, I will see those each element in the blue rectangular. Let's say I want to interact with this web element, which is the button says CR programs. If you can see, this button is defined with the A web tag. So in this test, what we are going to do is, now that we got page loaded, we need to take some action on it. So let's click the logo on the page, but first we must interact with an element. So our test is requiring us to interact with this logo. So we can just click on this button and we can hover over the logo, and you will see it's just covered by the blue rectangular. You can just click on this one and you will see this logo has some attributes, right, as you saw from the HTML and CSS classes. And if you guys remember the ID, so the way of define the ID, you can just search for the ID, and if you say logo, it will return a bunch of logos. But if you want to return the ID as a logo, if you use pound keyword and say logo, it's going to return this 101, as you can see. It is 101 and it defines this logo. So if in Cypress we have a selectors, so the most common and the most selector that you will use is going to be cy.get. So this cy.get is basically a Cypress built-in selector, and it gets this any CSS locator inside, and from that one it is going to interact with that CSS locator directly. So since we want to interact with this logo, we can just take this locator and put it this one. It's understand 100% the same language that it's understanding here. So if you can look at anything inside this developer tools, it means this locator is going to work for this one too, as long as it is CSS locator. So let's go back to our test and let's see what our test requires us to do. So as we saw in here, to find this element by its locator, we will be using cy.get. So our test should now display get in the command log and still be green. So when I run this one and say this command, you will see this cy.get logo is everything is green, everything is passed because it found the logo. But from here, as you can see, even without adding an assertion, we know that everything is okay. This is because many of Cypress commands are built to fail if they don't find what they're expecting to find. This is known as default assertion. On the assertions, we will deep dive in like what is this default assertion, but basically, whenever we query for an element, Cypress already checks if that element is already exists in the DOM or not. For the legacy tools like Selenium or the tools that are like as old as Selenium, when the element that we want to find is not there, it was showing an exception, like no such element exception. But Cypress already checking it for us to making sure. So to make sure that we can just test this, so to verify this, replace this pound key logo with something not on the page. Let's say to go. So when we do this one, change this one with to go, and we can go to our page and we can validate if there is a to go element, which we don't. You can see it returns 0 of 0. So we expect this to fail. By the way, we didn't do any assertion, but Cypress will fail for us without showing an exception. So whenever I say this one, I go Cypress, it will try to find this element. It's trying for us a certain amount of time, which is by default set to 4000 milliseconds, which makes 4 seconds. and it's telling us timed out retrying after 4000 milliseconds. Expected to find element to go but never found it. So basically Cypress by default asserts if this web element exists in the web page or not. And as you can see, the errors are pretty much straight and pretty much obvious inside this red rectangular. It's telling us, hey, like you have a problem in this line. It's even telling you which line. It's even telling you like which folder and inside which test. It's really helpful. So let's go back to our presentation. And as we mentioned here, let's also replace back our to go to logo again, because we don't want a failure, but we just want to see the failure and how it looks like. A default assertion. I will make it logo again. So now we will do some actions as we mentioned in here, right? So the solid test consists of setting up the application state, which we just did, and taking an action on it, and make an assertion about resulting application state. So we are just going to click the logo. These are one of the specific commands that is called user actions, and in our next lecture we will go deep dive inside of this one. But basically, whenever we chain with the command click command, it means it is going to click this web element that we defined in here. As I said before, Cypress commands are pretty much straight and easy to understand and very easy and readable. From just reading these basic commands without really knowing too much about how to programming and coding, you can understand what's going on. So in this test, we are going to click this logo. So whenever I say this command is going to basically click the logo for me. I can just refresh. As you can see, it's clicked already. It just created some kind of blue circle. So as it says in here, you can read the command like a story. Cypress calls this chaining. And we chain together commands to build tests that really express what the app does in the declarative way. Also note that the application preview pane has updated further after the click, following the link and showing the destination page. Now let's do some assertion. These are going to be really basic assertions and basic actions, okay? We will deep dive into this more, but this is just a warm-up. So right now what we will do, after we click the logo, then we are going to validate this logo is visible, and we will be doing this again using this should. So again, I will just call this logo and I will just say should. As we mentioned before, this should is coming from the chai, but we have to use the chainers of this chai library, and whenever I press the single quotation, it's going to suggest me all of its chainers. And since we just want to validate it's visible, you can just go below if you want to validate to find that which one is the visible one. But if you cannot find, all you need to do is you can just check this command be visible. It's pretty much straight and readable. Whenever you write b dot visible, it's going to suggest you the command. This command is going to check if the element is visible or not. And whenever I say this one, you see the expect the logo to be visible. It's already checked that if this logo is visible or not. So today we have covered the some basic commands and some basic assertions and user actions in Cypress. We tried to understand what is this describe and it blocks in Cypress, what is this visit commands, what is the navigations in the Cypress, how we get query for an element, user action and validation. As I say, this was just a warm-up. In the next lectures, we are going to deep dive in this each command and we are going to do all the practices. So thank you very much for your time.